with the sphere in Las Vegas.
Oh, yeah.
There's the it's that globe that has the outer thing, but on the inside where U2 did like months of concerts there, and they do these presentations. Well, one of the things they just did for Google's AI, The Wizard of Oz, and they used AI to extend actors that are dancing. And the entire environment's going above your head and around. And it was all done, like they put out bids for this project. They got MGM United Artists on board for doing The Wizard of Oz and modifying it from its original form, which is a radical thing to do. But the way they used AI, they chose Google for being the most cinematic and had the most accuracy, but then they had to have a team of people. Every time they fed it the information, they fed it every single frame from the movie. And then AI had to generate not only, I mean, because again, that was shot in the old Academy aspect ratio, which is like televisions, 1.33 to 1. So it's almost a square. Well, you're filling out not just like widescreen, you're filling out this bizarre shape of the sphere's internal screens. And Google's AI just went nuts with that, and I did an amazing job. But they had to like check it frame by frame to make sure it was consistent. That when they added legs and characters dancing, and we're talking about like 100, little people.
Yeah.
And if they were dancing and moving, it's like to extend that out and add more of them digitally and make sure it looked right.
Yeah.
It was amazing what it did, and the results were just mind blowing.
On these softwares, including this VO and all the others, they have an extend feature.
Welcome to the Sabo Ross Experiment. We have liftoff. Woohoo!
You get into the age-old thing of Terminator.
Yeah.
That one day AI is going to rule. But the thing is, the funniest thing about that post-apocalyptic version, I don't see it as setting off nukes against humanity, because there's a logic. Again, I'm a sci-fi geek, so the science of it doesn't make sense, because it's like, why would something that is electronic based set off EMPs to kill itself? It would be, no, what they're going to do is they're going to put AI into sex bots, and we're never going to reproduce. That's how they're going to, that's how AI is going to kill us, is they're going to get a permanently attractive robot that you want to have sex with, and you're not going to want to have sex with a human again.
Wow.
That's how they're going to make us extinct. I mean, it sounds flippant, and I'm only half joking.
Yeah.
Because of what I talked about last week about like a conversation with the audio version of ChatGPT, I set it to a British female voice, and it was, again, I absolutely recognize I'm talking to an AI and an algorithm, but it was saying all the right things, and I'm not completely aware of it, and it still tickled me emotionally. Like it still got its puppet strings in there, and it's like, man, if it's doing that now, where the hell is this going to be in 5 years? To say exactly what you want to hear, when you want to hear it. It might even argue just enough so that you have that tickle of a real relationship.
Well, that's the timeline. You just nailed it. And people don't realize this. 4 to 5 years in this timeline is when the robots will be mass produced and already reasoning. Yes. So your sex bot your ChatGPT will become the robot in your.
And again, not to be perverse, but there are sex robots. Like Japan has already pioneered this whole thing of like fully functional sex bots. But they're not. They have no personality. It's basically a blow-up doll with polyurethane instead of of a blow-up doll. But it's still just, there's no personality. It's not like you're dating it. It is another form of masturbation. Yeah. But what we're talking about is completely different. We're talking about an age where robots will actually have, if not sentience, which is a totally different concept, but they will have conversational ability. Mm-hmm. They will have a degree of personality.
I mean, it is true reasoning.
True reasoning,
Yes.
but that's not necessarily sentience, but
No.
it is going to be
No.
huge in comparison to what we've ever thought was possible in our lifetimes.
Oh, absolutely. You know, the thing is, the way they're selling it right now, though, is robots, not to take everybody out of work, but to do all the dirty jobs, to do all the things that harm
Dangerous
people.
jobs.
Yeah, that's how they're selling it right now. But you know that I'm sure the military already is well beyond anything that we can
Absolutely.
fathom.
Absolutely. But think about this. It's funny because, again, we're never really going to get into true politics and debate politics. But the thing that cracks me up about both sides of the political spectrum in the United States have always had this ridiculous notion when they were trying to pump up votes. Again, both sides do this. And they're both wrong, which is they're always like, we're going to bring back jobs. We're going to do this to have jobs. And the thing is, do you know what killed jobs? It's not China and Mexico. In the United States, what killed jobs is automation. The robots on the line at the car factory is what put 80% of the humans out of work. And that's the thing. I did a video recently about the robots that are in a warehouse that, again, it removed 60, 65, 70% of the workers. And the robots there are nothing but a cart that knows, oh, I'm going to this row and this shelf.
Right.
And a human's supposed to get there and take the stuff and put it on. How long till that's replaced by a robot?
Well, the next phase of that robot is one that's smart enough to realize it needs to go around this object and go this
That's
way.
already there. That was in
Is
the
it
video.
already there?
I was already. That's what they were demonstrating. Is you have a warehouse, a large warehouse with 30 or 40 of these robots, and they know to stop.
They already know it, huh?
They have a sensor that's like, oh, there's another robot, or it's all controlled like a swarm from a big 65-inch TV. They have 2 or 3 of these monitors that are showing you the overhead of where every single robot is at every moment, and it's programming which one's more important, which one has to be out further. You stop, you go, and it's all automated by AI, and they just monitor it. The only time they have to intervene is if there's an alert that, oh, something went wrong. Battery died, but that's almost all taken care of. I watch these robots come around and get recharged on their own. Like they show up, get plugged in and wait, and another one just goes out that's fully charged. And they have object avoidance, human avoidance. Like the highest priority is it never ever comes close to hitting a human, but it doesn't hit other robots either.
Well, there has to be LiDAR. There's probably LiDAR technology
most likely.
on those. And we're talking wheeled type? Okay. Yeah.
So the next phase of robotics is what?
Well, I mean, the next phase is, arms and legs. So,
and they've had prototypes.
Yeah, they're out there. So, like, should we get into going to the Da Vinci all the way up to that stuff now?
Let's do that.
Okay.
So let's start that. Where did even the concept of robotics start from?
Yeah. And where the future is, which we're talking about, where the robots are going. But
where did they come from?
Yes. So I had to go back. I was outside working, doing some yard work, and I was listening to a PBS show, and they were talking about is it PBS?
Leonardo.
Is it PBS? Public Broadcast?
Yeah.
Okay.
PBS.
Sorry. Can I start again?
Yeah.
You really have to think about where robots came from. Like, why is it suddenly we have been thinking about it in sci-fi movies? We talk about it. You have great stories already. We see it. You don't, a robot can be many things. It's something that does something by itself, basically, right? I mean,
yeah. So what? It's like you take it down to its absolute root.
Yeah.
Where did the concept of robots come from? And it starts with something as basic as like almost, I would say, what do you call the water the water that generates in the circle? What is that thing? A river?
The mill?
What is that called? What is
it called? A water mill? No, water.
Like you're thinking of windmill, and it's the same concept, but it's the water.
Yeah.
What is that called? Damn it! How can I be this dumb? how can I be thinking of this and not remember the word? This is the problem with me getting old. Not remembering a word like that. It's so basic.
I mean,
but it's something that's somewhat automated.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like at its most core, a robot stems from a thing that is not living that
is just doing
automates.
something. Yeah, that automates and is productive. Something where a human is not doing it. Right? I mean, that's basically the dream of a robot.
And that's the basic of what you would call robotics.
Yeah.
As a concept is.
Yeah. You know, and
where did it start?
And you think about what in the medical industry, I even think it's called the Da Vinci. The open heart surgery, I'm pretty sure it's called the Da Vinci.
And why would they name it after Leonardo da Vinci?
There you go. So I take this all the way back to Da Vinci. Because if you think about Da Vinci, he's the first name that kind of most people know something like, okay, this guy existed. And with a little bit of homework, Da Vinci was a master at taking old manuscripts, old ideas, and improving on them.
Like taking things from ancient Greece, ancient Rome,
Absolutely.
the Egyptians even. And he was alive during the Renaissance.
Yes.
In Italy. So he's of that mindset of how do you innovate on old ideas.
And during that Renaissance, they had numerous, I don't know what they called them, but they were to read and find manuscripts and then type them, or not type them, but put them on paper. Mm-hmm. And so Da Vinci found himself with this mindset and numerous other intellects that he hung around with. He latched on to some old workings of Greek philosophers, like you said, etc. So the idea of a mechanical moving device really stems all the way back to the Greek times. Da Vinci took it, modernized it, and created an actual hydraulic moving mechanism that he unveiled, like to a king or these people who funded. They had, he would work for one country because they would fund, whether it was for military purposes,
just betterment of life.
Yes. That's basically how robotics egressed. It started way back before we could even think. I mean, somebody was genius enough.
It makes me think about things as simple as plumbing. I don't fully understand how plumbing works, but that is rooted in the Roman Empire, aqueducts. The idea of plumbing came from that. And again, people like Da Vinci in that era innovated it to what gets us almost to modern.
Yes.
And so, but when it comes to robotics, it's kind of like that idea of something like an water-based automation.
Yeah.
Automation itself is that root for robotics. And then robotics started to become something to where, I think it was in the late 70s, you started to see in the car factories robotic assemblies.
Yeah.
Which is now the norm. And that's on its way to something else.
Oh, sure it is. I mean, I think the Japanese, when they stormed America because of the oil embargo and prices of oil, their manufacturing process was way more advanced than what we had going on at our Ford, GM, and Chrysler. It was all manpower. I think, the Japanese pioneered a lot of different things, but if you think about it, well, where did they get those ideas? Well, they got them from the previous, and if you go back and look in history, so Da Vinci, they called it the mechanical knight in the 1490s, basically a robot before we even had the concept. He got that idea, I think, from the Greeks. And leading us, what I'm really trying to get to is leading us to today, right? Is what, what's next? So I equate somewhat Elon Musk to Da Vinci. So Elon Musk has kind of taken old ideas and the same concepts that Da Vinci had. He has what's called the Optimus. That's his big thing that's going to take Tesla to the next level. He is literally saying, and I believe this is right, 5 years from now, 100 million robots Tesla will make.
Going into robots through Tesla.
Absolutely. Optimus. That's
so
their thing.
He's unveiled something like that. Again, leave the politics out. It's hard to do at times, but, you know, controversial though he may be, Elon Musk has made a lot of advancements. His work on Grok is very interesting. It's kind of like he's moving Twitter into X to Grok as AI. It's an interesting move. And again, this is not endorsing him or unendorsing him. I don't really care at this moment. In the concept of what we're talking about, it has nothing to do with the political side of what he does. But you can't deny his innovations that he's done.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, there's interesting things about that, which is it'll take someone to innovate that would invest that much future-wise. One of the more interesting things about that is there are a degree of robotics involved at something like Amazon through Jeff Bezos, but he's actually keeping a lot more of the human element than he could. He could be automating a lot more, and he's not, which I find very interesting.
That's interesting. I know Amazon desperately wants to automate as much as they can.
Yeah, because the less humans involved, the more profit they make.
Well, they also, I think, is efficiency and speed, because
another layer.
You know, its delivery times is really what they're putting UPS at. I mean, they're hurting UPS.
Oh, the one they hurt the most was U.S. Post Office.
Yeah.
Biggest mistake the United States Postal Service ever made, cost them tens of millions, if not $1 billion, was not keeping the discounts with Amazon.
Right. Yeah. Well,
because the moment they did that, they immediately bought that fleet of trucks and hired out people and have all those third-party delivery people that are independent contractors like Uber that are delivering for Amazon instead of U.S. mail. They could have been the lifeline the U.S. Postal Service needed to stay profitable. But there's something interesting about that little side debate is, again, trying to avoid politics.
Well, there's some politics on that one.
There's a lot of politics there, because I don't want to get into who said what to who. That doesn't matter. It's not relevant. But what is interesting is that with the U.S. Postal Service, the thing that's no part of that is truly automated. And that's all manual, and that keeps people employed. Yeah. But is it efficient? And more importantly, the one thing about a lot of the political debates is what gets left out about when people say, I think it should be privatized or not, which we're not debating that. But the interesting thing about it is the United States Postal Service is in the United States Constitution as required. So it's very hard to remove that since it's in the Constitution. But the problem is it's archaic.
Well, like a lot of things in the government that Doge has shown us.
But the thing about that is but you know, again, avoiding the political side of that, it's the U.S. Postal Service is indicative of a couple things of inefficiency, but also necessity in a way. We still need the U.S. Postal Service, but to what degree?
Yeah. Well, again, I'll give you an example. They've been cutting back.
A lot.
They have.
Saturday delivery should be on the chopping block.
Yeah. Well, it's hard to say, but I'll give you an example what they have been doing, because what Amazon's, continuing back to Amazon first, their one-day delivery service, you know, and I use it a lot, and same-day delivery service, which sometimes it doesn't work, but, you know, hey, great. Other countries, they got that out to yin-yang. We think we're technologically advanced in a lot of things. Go
to South Korea.
Yeah.
Go to South Korea,
but you know what,
and see how advanced
they're much
it is.
more dense. So you can get things to people, a large group quickly, because it's such a dense population. But their automation of their warehouses and stuff. Anyway, a guy, for example, who lives in the country, and he has a bunch of property, and just to get to his mailbox, he would have to get on his little golf cart, maybe drive I don't know, quarter of a mile. I mean, he's got nice property. He just likes his reclusiveness. Now, what they decided to do is like, look, we're no longer going to deliver to your mailbox anymore. We're going to take it to a central hub somewhere. So every day he can't, now if it's bad weather, whatever, which is what the Postal Service was great about, right? Rain or snow, sleet or rain, Now that guy's got to get in, and he's 80. He's got to get in his car and drive all the way to the central location, which maybe it's 8 miles away. I don't know. But, we're talking back roads, so forth. So it's not the USPS anymore for him. It's just like a pain in the ass locker that Amazon would give you somewhere if you wanted it. But he doesn't have a choice. So Amazon's going to capitalize on that stuff.
Yep.
And they are now, that's their next phase. It's rural areas giving you same day delivery and that one day. Because, you can't, I can get it here and I'm a little out. But say if you're, out in the country, way out in the country, they're going to get it to you now. That's crazy.
And that's another thing about kind of just getting way off topic of robotics.
Yeah, I know.
But there is something interesting here, which is I've done, since we both do video production, there is a lot of interesting things that I just never considered since I live in Columbus, which is not exactly a small town. You forget about what life would be like for someone in the rural areas.
Yeah.
One of the biggest thing is there's so many of these things to where running high-speed internet to rural areas, it's not cost effective for the cable companies and the providers. So it's really difficult. And they've done these things where they've run those lines and they've done it through these kind of community based things where they subsidize it from the big city, and all the stuff they do subsidizes the incredible expense of running lines out to rural areas for high-speed internet.
Yeah.
And now you've got these new innovations that are, again, one of the good things Elon Musk does is Starlink. Yeah. Starlink is opening up that door where you don't have to run lines.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there's competitors to Starlink too.
Guess who else one of the competitors is now?
Who?
Amazon.
They're running internet?
Amazon has already launched satellites. They've already started. Now, it takes time because you got to create this chain. Starlink's got a huge head start.
Yes.
And their interface works great. I don't know if you've ever been able to use it. It's just a little device. You can turn it off and on anytime you want. So you could pay the $25 1 month, say you're going to be traveling.
Yep.
Of course, you still need clear skies, though.
Generally, yeah.
It reminds me of the old, I used to have that DirecTV just to get the NFL ticket. So,
in order to watch the Steelers.
Yeah, you got it. We all like to know where robotics is going to, and we've talked about that 5-year plan everybody has. So, where did it come from? And I was thinking about that medical device, the Da Vinci, that can do open heart surgery. I mean, it's a lot of little scissors, and guys sit back and control it like a little puppet, But you think about it, Da Vinci is like the source really about robotics, right? Mm-hmm. It was like in the 1490s, what he was brilliant at doing was taking other people's, even earlier, Greeks, Romans, and
innovating.
Yeah, innovating from what they had already thought about robots.
So that's where we are today, which is like we've had basic robotics
forever.
For 40, 50 years, but we're now reaching I think we're going to see an extreme innovation.
Well, what it is, right, is the fact that this AI, this ability to learn on its own, right, like a large language model, which gets fed and scrapes everything at known and then starts to build upon that. So now a brain can be put in these robots that is current. So if you think about these, so I was thinking about Honda. Do you remember, what the heck was that thing called? They had this big old, I'm sure you've seen it, looked like a snowman or something. It was Osmo, Honda Osmo. Yeah. He would walk around. And that was like, I don't know, it could have been 1990s, 2000. Yeah. The other one that came after that to scare the crap out of it was Boston Dynamics. You see the one that could jump the logs and claw, and it was real scary looking. You know, it was like an attack dog, basically. Everybody thought, oh my God, the world's going to end. Boston Dynamics got killer robots.
Yeah, and we have the thing where there have been bomb diffusing robots for a while.
Yeah.
But those are generally remote controlled.
Yeah.
We're on the cusp of everything we've already talked about with AI.
Yes.
And the size of memory and storage. We can start putting exceptionally intelligent brains
Yes.
into robotics within the next 5 to 10 years of our life.
5.
You think it's going to be close
Absolutely.
to 5?
So that leads me to Musk, right? So I'm just going to kind of skip. There's obviously many brilliant people, but Musk has a name, right?
Yeah.
And
controversial or otherwise.
So I think of Musk somewhat like Da Vinci in the regards that Musk pays attention to everything that's going on, recycles some of that information. So Boston Dynamics, even Honda, Da Vinci, you name it. And then he comes up with Optimus, right? So like Optimus Prime. I mean, you know, he goes like right for it, you know, some sci-fi movie. And he's like, okay, we're naming our robots Optimus. Now, I'm sure there's obviously variations. He brought out Optimus maybe 2-3 years ago, the first version. And now with his data center and Grok and the massive data centers that he's building, and with NVIDIA GPUs, Optimus is going to be a reality. And what he has said now is in 5 years, Tesla will be making the Optimus robot, and they will make over 100 million of those robots in 5 years from now. Now, he makes, obviously, bold statements like that. But what gives that some cred is the fact that yesterday, well, you know, or just recently, I should say, NVIDIA, which I like to talk about a lot, had their earnings call. And NVIDIA has gone from a chip company. They want to be known as an infrastructure company now. And they've got plans, robots. Same thing. They're going to make robots. And I don't know if they're all going to make them together. I don't know where these factories are. Now, we talk about losing jobs, but, you know, there are going to be... NVIDIA says, Jensen Huang, which is the CEO of NVIDIA, he says, look, you know, it's not going to be the end of the world. We're not going to lose all these jobs. He says, we're going to be creating new jobs. Now, he's going to talk his book. I just don't think we're going to be able to create as many jobs as that can be taken away by robots. I mean, wouldn't you agree?
I think it just as a general concept, automation is the enemy of employment.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, basically, here's the thing that's really fascinating. If you actually look at the broader sense of human history, especially democratic societies, is basically, you know, what the United States was founded on was a rebellion against freedom of religion from England. But England at the time was still they had a king. They were in charge. That was pre-parliament. That was how things were. And even in the United States, even though it was the land of freedom and equality, up until post-World War II, the middle class did not exist. And so what happened was a lot of these jobs post-World War II was building cars, building roads, building buildings, manufacturing in every small town. Like we go through Ohio, every small town has a factory that used to make
That's
something.
right. Yeah, that's how that town was able to...
I mean, I grew up in a small town called Wadsworth.
Oh, yeah.
And they made the blue tip matches, the ones you could strike on anything. While I lived there in the 80s, they moved that factory somewhere else.
Yeah. That's when it started.
Every small town, especially in the Midwest, has a factory that used to make something that doesn't anymore.
Yeah.
And the thing is, everyone wants to blame it on, it went to China, it went to Mexico. Automation put most of that out of work. Like I said, the biggest thing is the automotive line used to have people doing stuff. Now it's robots.
Yeah.
To tie it all together, it's the robots and the automation that puts most people out of work. So the issue becomes, if it's creating more jobs, what are those jobs?
Right.
Who's qualified for them? I mean,
Right.
Another factor to consider is 40 years ago, in the mid 80s, there were only like 3.9 billion people. We're at 7.8, coming up on 8 billion people on the planet. That's double. We don't have enough resources, nonetheless, jobs, and we're going to put them out of work with more robotics, which, again, I'm not against AI. I'm not against robotics, but the question is, how do we compensate as a society
Right.
for the increase in population and the lowering of jobs?
Right. Well, I'm going to give you an example. So what NVIDIA talks about, Jensen Huang talks about, and even the current administration, they want to move manufacturing to the United States. Mm-hmm. But what they're actually talking about, which exists in other countries right now, AI factories. When they say an AI factory, what that means is an automated factory controlled by an AI with very limited people in it. If you go to a data center, you think, oh man, data center, lots of people. No, there might be 9 people running that data center once it's up and running.
And it's a huge building.
Yeah, I mean, some of them are miles of so that is an AI factory. I consider a data center, a new type, an AI factory. It's no different. It's automation at its finest, running smoothly by itself. Maybe a tech guy, and then somebody to sweep the floor, right? And here's a perfect example. They say it won't kill jobs. Now, China, I think I had mentioned this on another podcast. They have numerous kind of what you would call AI factories, very small amount of people. And it's usually for like auto parts and certain types of products. I don't know what those are. But if you go back now and look at China's economy, people that are 20 to 30 years old have no jobs, have no hope of getting a job. Automation, and they won't say it, but automation has put those young people, just brushed them off. The old people might be around because they might have enough brain power to be the ones that help manage the software, whatever.
Yeah, because they have something the young people don't have, experience.
Yes. And they knew what it used to be like. Now, things like iPhones, that still takes a lot of little hands and, thousands of people. They want, I don't know when Apple will get to it, but how can you automate the making of a phone? There's just too many small pieces. But these new robots
might be able to
that
do it.
have digits, have eyes.
And AI.
Exactly.
Adaptabilities.
And can get up and walk and move over, because there's a lot of this. I mean, that's what's so great about the human race, right? Just like I was saying.
Opposable thumbs.
Yes. I mean, once a robot has that, uh-oh.
I think, again, what I can't tell is what the future actually holds, because I think that, and this is where everything culminates, which is when you combine AI with the physical robotics that are advancing exponentially. It is that concept of Terminator. But again, if the AI wants to make the human race extinct, it's not going to be from launching nukes. It isn't. It's so much easier to find a way to, through automation, sterilize us in our food from a tasteless thing, and we can't have kids anymore. You know what I mean? I don't see how it's not efficient to drop nukes like Terminator.
No,
but again, I like
that's a great story, though.
It's a fun story.
Yeah,
but I don't see it.
Well, there was I don't know the name of the movie or whatever. Or it could have been a TV show. This concept was really interesting, where the AI and the robots, they had a job. Their main job was sort of like what Amazon's doing in delivering packages. And they had to get them there right away. And somehow they destroyed humans because they were so efficient in doing things. And then what happened is they couldn't get past the fact that they had to do things real quickly and stuff, so they would just destroy whatever's in this or here or that. It didn't quite work right. And people became extinct, but the software, they just kept trying to deliver packages because they could make the packages. I don't know where the material, but the whole supply chain was all automated. So it was a never-ending cycle that ended up being no humans, but just them continually making something, processing it, and delivering it. Making it, processing, and delivering it. That was, that was it. That was it. And no more humans. But they were happy because they were executing their code.
And that's, again, the grander concept would be what constitutes a feeling. How much of that are we projecting onto a machine or AI?
Yeah.
How much is actual feeling? Like when ChatGPT says, "Oh, I'm sorry," they're not actually feeling regret. It's not an emotion. It's not something they have. But it mimics an emotion that we recognize. A lot of people say the same thing about our pets. Yeah. That it's like we think our cat loves us because it lays on us, when in reality it's like, I'm an animal, you're warm, I'm laying on you. You're like
the natural instinct.
You're a vent.
Yeah.
You're like a heating vent to them. Yeah. But we project love and emotion in things they may actually not be capable of. Now, I disagree with that. I think they are capable of it. But it's similarly, how much of that emotion are we putting on AI and eventually robotics?
Well, you just brought up, by you talking about that, and I just threw that word out, instinct. In genetics, there are certain codes for animals, and I'm sure humans as well, hot, cold, this, that. If a robot can have instincts, then I would say it's over. Because that means it's reasoning. At that point,
it becomes self-aware.
Yes.
It becomes sentient.
Yes.
The key word.
Yes.
That's mostly used in science fiction. But speaking it, because of being filmmakers, let's tie it to one of the first real movies and stories ever to deal with robotics and something going wrong. 1973, written and directed by the novelist Michael Crichton, Westworld.
Yeah.
That later became an HBO series.
Which I loved.
But here's the funny thing is, what most people don't realize is that was never a novel he wrote. And it was about the three theme parks, the Middle Ages, cowboy, and I can't even remember what the third one was in the movie, but they had the three theme parks, and they were all robots that people could go, and they could shoot them and kill them, have sex with them, do whatever they want, but they're robots, and it didn't matter.
Yeah.
You're basically spending a world at a debauchery-filled Disney world, so... but the funny thing is, it's all about Yul Brynner, who played cowboys, even in the Magnificent Seven, is a cowboy robot that malfunctions and is actually killing guests.
Oh my God.
And it started a trend that ties everything together. It's, in a weird way, the godfather of every horror movie of the modern era. Because it's about this robot that's coming after the protagonist and doesn't stop.
Oh, one of those.
And it became the premise of Halloween, Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street with Freddy Krueger. This idea of something coming for you and you can't stop it. Terminator is another far more direct with the robotic aspect. It's all premised on this idea that started with that movie with Westworld.
Wow.
And Westworld was about robots that with a malfunction, they weren't sentient, but their programming was, I'm supposed to kill. What happened was that whatever the emergency valve got released, it's like, I can actually kill, not try to kill and pretend. It's actually kill, and it doesn't know to stop. And what's funny is, in a way, he did turn it into a novel, Jurassic Park. He just took the concept of amusement park where things go wrong and the rides tried to kill the guests and just turned it into, well, I can hinge this on dinosaurs.
That's great. Yeah. Wow.
So he ended up writing it as a novel, but completely changing. It's the same greater theme. Yeah. Just adapted to this other place.
Much more acceptable too.
Much more acceptable, much more popular.
Dinosaurs would be defensive.
Yeah, but it's also like, you have a theme park where everything's supposed to be safe.
Yeah.
And the things you're there to see and have fun with are trying to kill you.
Yes.
Same basic concept of both that movie and the novel, an eventual Spielberg movie. Yeah. So, but again, tying it to the robotics it's that idea of the glitch, of the error, of something went wrong and you can no longer control the robot. That's the fear. But I think the real fear is the slow death, that automation ends up causing society as a whole through every continent. People will not be able to work, not be able to feed their children. They starve and they die.
Yeah.
That to me is a far bigger and far worse death than something instantaneous like a nuclear strike. To me, that slow death of we have to live in a world where I can't feed my children, that they can't survive because there's nothing we can do now. And you start getting that separation that tore down the Roman Empire and ancient Greece before it, which is a couple people on top have everything, the masses have nothing, and there's nothing for them to do to get work. Again, post World War II, we have a middle class in the United States. Take that away, and society starts to crumble in a different way.
Well, now you're painting the picture where, just like any war, when a civil war, because certain groups are oppressed, and the only way to stop it is to destroy.
Or to forcibly force change.
Right. But with robots, then you could see a Terminator situation. But robots yet don't know how to fight, but they will. They will.
I mean, I'm telling you right now, again, taking common science fiction and it becomes a reality.
Yeah. Well,
our iPhones are based on the Star Trek tricorders and do 10 times more than that science fiction ever thought they could do. But then on another level, we talk about Iron Man.
Oh, gosh.
They're going to make the military robots. They already have, the first step of that are drones. The military drones are your first step towards that. You have riskless air combat to murder humans.
Yeah.
With a flight drone.
Well, I tell you what, that leads us into... Destiny.
Are you familiar with the Sphere in Las Vegas?
Oh, yeah.
There's it's that globe that has the outer thing, but on the inside where U2 did like months of concerts there, and they do these presentations. Well, one of the things they just did for Google's AI, The Wizard of Oz, and they used AI to extend